The action is set in the United Kingdom. The year is 1972. Polly Epley was escorted to Leconfield House, the headquarters of MI5 in the centre of London, by the two officers from the intelligence agency. The only words spoken on the journey were when Polly stated, "I'm an American citizen," with the woman agent responding, "We are aware. Do you wish to be escorted to the American embassy, ma'am?" Polly shrugged and settled back in her seat. "No, I'm good for the moment. Just interested to hear what you're gonna say." On her arrival at MI5 headquarters, she was led to an interview room and only had a moment to wait before being joined by Special Agent Alex Singer, who extended his hand. They shook hands. "Good afternoon, Miss Epley. Thank you for coming. I'm Alex Singer." Polly smiled at the agent, a slim, well-dressed man, wearing a striped business suit and sporting a thin moustache. He could have been mistaken for one of the thousands of business people who streamed into the City of London every single day. "Thank you, Mr. Singer. What can I do for you?" Singer opened the slim folder he had been carrying when he entered the room. "I understand you were contacted by Johnny Burnett of the Sun newspaper?" Polly's eyebrows raised in surprise. Clearly, MI5 were watching Johnny. She nodded. "Yeah. He had a story he thought might interest me." "The Alien Artefact?" Polly hesitated. "Well, yes, although the artifact is not confirmed as being of alien origin." "I understand the current status of the artifact is your theory alone, Miss Epley." Polly smiled. "At the moment, although I expect your scientists will confirm it." She leaned forward and placed her hands on the table. "Why did you have me brought here, Mr. Singer? Why am I here?" There was silence as Alex Singer considered a question and sighed as he answered. "We are your allies. We Brits and you Americans are friends, right?" Polly nodded as Alex continued. "We have a couple of satellites in space, one of which is called Prospero and has the added function of watching for the bloom of a rocket launch in the United Kingdom." Polly looked surprised by this information as Alex continued. "I see you're surprised. That's not the satellite's only function, of course. I merely tell you this so you can understand exactly why you're sitting here." Polly held up her hand to stop the agent from speaking. "Now, you've got me confused, Mr. Singer. The bloom of a rocket launch?" Singer nodded. "A rocket motor powerful enough to shoot something into space requires an enormous amount of fuel to launch. We can see the flames of the engines from space, and that's called the bloom." Polly was surprised. "You have rocket launchers here in the UK?" Alex shrugged. "We do have some experimental programs." "Okay, so why am I here?" "There have been no blooms at all for the past 3 months." Polly was mystified and demanded, "What is the significance?" And Why am I here? We have received word from our people that this artefact, whatever its origin, collided with a meteorite that was heading for Earth, while the artefact was still heading into space. What? Alec nodded. Yeah. The collision was captured on Prospero's camera and followed all the way to its impact. Polly Epley was dumbfounded as she whispered, "The artefact? You followed it down to Earth? Are you sure it was launched in the United Kingdom?" The estimated flight path using the artefact's direction prior to its collision confirmed it as coming from the UK, but the exact point of origin is unknown, the instruments not being capable. Plus, no bloom was recorded anywhere in the United Kingdom. They stared at each other, Polly being first to speak as she spluttered. "So, a rocket was not used to launch this thing into space?" Singer shook his head. "Not on the evidence we have." He could see the wheels turning in Polly's head as she thought of his statement. She could only come to one conclusion, and Alec watched her closely as she arrived at it. Somebody has discovered a different way of launching objects into space. He nodded. "That's right. And on this evidence, it's undetectable." Polly sat back in her seat as the door opened and the secretary entered with a tray carrying tea and cakes. He placed them on the table and left the room as Alex smiled. "Would you like me to be mother and pour the tea?" As the meeting between Polly Epley and Alex Singer was taking place in MI5 headquarters, a messenger hand-delivered a note to the front desk of the USSR Embassy in Kensington Palace Gardens, London. The clerk at the desk took one look at the name of the addressee on the envelope and called across one of the burly security people watching visitors enter the embassy. There was a brief consultation between the two, and the woman security officer hurried away, the message obviously of importance. Polly sipped at her tea and watched Alex Singer take a small tea cake, the atmosphere between the two tense but cordial. Polly smiled. "This is very nice, Mr. Singer, but why am I here?" Alec finished eating a piece of the cake before answering, then smiled back at her. "Because of your unique status, Miss Epley." Polly was puzzled. "Unique?" "That's right. I'm just a worker at the Centre for Extra-Terrestrial Studies, following up on a story which may be of interest to the Centre." Alex smiled. "Of course. The Alien Artefact. Still to be determined if it's alien or not." Alec lifted his cup, took a sip, then set it down again before leaning forward. "Of course. Although you already knew the origin of the artefact was terrestrial." Polly looked at him warily. "Terrestrial?" Alex Singer gave her a broad smile. "Of course. As a high-ranking member of the CIA, you were already aware of the Prospero satellite's video of the collision." The only indication Polly made of the MI5 agent's bombshell, which had been tossed into the verbal arena, was a quick blink, then silence. She stared at him as Alex Singer sighed. "Look, Polly, We are allies, friends. This is not a confrontation. She continued to stare at him as Alec resumed. We have no wish to make your status known to anyone else. We simply want your help. This time it was Polly who reached for a cake, then sipped at her tea before answering. I can neither confirm or... Polly, we are friends. She sat back in her seat. Go on. Because of the Prospero's video, we now know for certain it is possible to launch something into space without using vast amounts of fuel. He stopped and looked at Polly, trying to assess her reaction. There was none. Nastya Ivanova, a 6'6" tall, grey-haired woman with a body capable of knocking over walls and the rank of USSR Embassy Head of Security, read the note which had been hand-delivered to the front desk. Officially, Nastya Ivanova was in charge of the office staff in the embassy, although every security agency in Britain was fully aware of her real rank. There was a knock on her office door and the door remained shut until she growled, "Enter." Valentin Grankin, a pasty-faced man, her number 2 in the security hierarchy of the embassy, and a chess grandmaster, entered and sat down. Nastya pushed the note to him and waited while he read the contents. Grankin looked at her, astonishment on his face. "You are sure of this?" She nodded. "We have a source." Grankin reread the note and pushed it back. "We must have it. Do we have any other information? Who and where?" Nastya shook her head and pushed the note back to him. "We have no other information other than the device originated in the United Kingdom. You will obtain it for the USSR," he protested. "How if we have no other information?" She scowled at him. "Mere details. You're a grandmaster. Make a plan and obtain the device." Polly Epley looked at Alex Singer, the MI5 special agent who had just exposed her as an American CIA agent. She spoke quietly. "This must be very important if you're approaching me like this, Mr. Singer." "It is. I believe we have a mole in MI5. I also believe the USSR are now aware of the artefact." Polly was puzzled. "What's the significance of the artefact?" He shrugged. "I have no idea if the object has any significance at all." "Then why the effort?" Alex smiled. "Miss Epley, you're nobody's fool. You know exactly why it's of interest." She smiled. "The means of transporting it into space without a rocket?" "Yes, that's one reason." "The other?" "We need to find the person responsible for the launch before anybody else. And I'm assuming that person is also the inventor of the launch vehicle." "You think the Russians know already?" Polly was still mystified. "But why do you want me to help, Mr. Singer?" "Because your cover is perfect." She frowned when he said that. "You seem to have no problem discovering me." Alex smiled. "Well, we did have a word." Polly's mouth fell open at the revelation. "They gave me away, just like that." Alex Singer sat back and put his hands up as if to ward off her anger. Whoa, no. We are friends. It's as much in your interest as ours. We need to find this person before the opposition does. Polly's anger subsided as quickly as it had risen. I have the perfect cover? Yes, you're investigating an alien artifact on behalf of the Center for Extra-Terrestrial Studies. That's perfect cover.